during my 9th month of pregnancy. My older son had a playmate come over, and when the mother came to pick up that child, her infant daughter was coughing a lot. And I asked her, does your child have whooping cough? And she says, she might. We don't immunize, and she's been not feeling very well lately.
Pertussis, or whooping cough, is a very contagious disease. It's caused by a bacteria that affects the lungs. It starts out like just a common cold, and so it's easy to spread it. It goes on then, though, to have this cough that has a whoop at the end. Not everybody who has whooping cough has that sound, but it is so characteristic when you do.
A week later, I ended up with a very bizarre upper respiratory infection, and I was coughing a lot, but I thought I can't be because I've been immunized, because I was immunized as a kid.
The vaccine doesn't last for a full lifetime, and so none of us reach adulthood protected by our childhood immunization to pertussis. We need a booster later in life.
I would cough and cough and cough. I'd cough, literally 50 or 60 times. It was during one of these coughing spasms that my water literally broke. I gave birth to a very strong, healthy, 9-pound baby boy, Colin, and unbeknownst to me, when I kissed him for the first time, I passed pertussis right on to him. He was fine for a week, and there was no sign of any problem. And then he ended up with that cough, and he got really, really, really sick.
Pertussis is very serious for infants. It can lead to pneumonia, dehydration, as well as brain damage and seizures. Ultimately, it can lead to death in infants.
He was placed in the ICU. He would cough and cough and cough until he threw up, and then he'd turn blue, and then we'd have to, pat him to get him going again. It was a very vulnerable period of time in our lives.
Infants who get pertussis often need to be hospitalized because an infant with pertussis can't suck and swallow. They need IV fluids, and sometimes they need long-term nutrition because pertussis lasts for so long. It used to be called the 100-day cough.
It literally almost killed my baby, and it was completely preventable.
In order to protect those infants, we need to put a cocoon of safety around them by vaccinating the people who share the air with them. In a community, we rely on each other to be vaccinated. Anyone who breaks that chain, who isn't vaccinated, can be infected and spread it to others.
I ended up getting a disease from a child who wasn't immunized because my own immunity from childhood had worn off.
Such a booster wasn't available until recently. Now that it is, I think it's fair for every parent to insist that everyone who shares the air with their infant is fully vaccinated.
Having Gavin was like my dream come true, to have that fourth boy to kind of complete us, and also to honor my brother, that, to name him after him. It was a really significant time in our lives, and to be completely transparent, probably the happiest time in our lives as a family. It was just really a wonderful, joyous time for us. We decided to go to visit family on the U.S. mainland in Utah. We live in Hawaii, and so it was a big, exciting adventure for us. And before we left, I took Gavin into the doctor just because I wanted to make sure we had the green light go. Because he was so young, I wanted to make sure he was safe to travel. And we had a great Christmas, and right after Christmas, Gavin started coughing, just occasionally. One cough here, one cough there. A few nights into that, we got a little bit more concerned than we had been before, and we decided to take him to the emergency room just to be checked. He hadn't been eating well, and so I was worried about dehydration. So when we got to the emergency room, I truly just believed that we would give him some fluids maybe, and that they would send him home. But when they decided to admit him, I was very surprised. They told us to expect to be there through the weekend. So we spent a few days there, and there really was no change in his condition. In fact, he seemed to be getting a little bit worse. It was just a few days after that he still was not improving, and they transferred him down to the Pediatric Intensive Care Unit, or the PICU. They had gotten a positive test result, which indicated pertussis. And from there, it was a very quick decline. He was very ill, and it was fast, and it was terrible. We watched him die from pertussis. We sang to him, and we spent as much time right at his side as we possibly could. And my husband put his hand on his chest and was just feeling for those last beats of his heart. And within moments, he was gone. We left the hospital with empty arms, and it was a really terrible thing. We left, and we had to leave him there and go back to the reality that we were not whole, and we had to go and tell our sons that their brother wasn't coming home. And that was a terrifying thing to have to do as a parent, to go and tell your sons that their brother is dead. And it was a tremendously difficult time for our family, and continues to be.